Bonnie and I made our first trip to the Bahamas over 12 years ago. We heard the stories about how scary, expensive, dangerous, and difficult it is in the Bahamas. The scary things we were told about ended up being misinformation. This year will be our 13th winter season in the Bahamas, and we can now affirm to you it is better in the Bahamas. The purpose of this video is to help you recognize the misinformation that you might have heard. Bonnie and I are not professional boaters, just boaters like you, so this is our perspective for your viewing pleasure. You, of course, have to make your own boating and navigation decisions. I will touch on many subjects that require your further research. We hope you will consider spending next winter in the Bahamas and perhaps even join our fun Royal Marsh Harbor Yacht Club. Our yacht club is full of fun, support, games, exercise, pickleball, dinners, happy hours, events, interesting seminars, and support of the Bahamian community. We take care of each other and would love to have you in our boating community. In this video, I will focus on the Abacos and the Marsh Harbor area because this is our home base for the winter. You have heard the myths about the Bahamas, so it is time we do some myth busting. The first myth, it is expensive in the Bahamas. Well, this myth has a bit of truth to it. Of course, it is expensive in Florida also. Compared to Florida, food is from 10 to 30% more expensive. Restaurants about the same as Florida. Fuel about 20% more. Depending on where you keep your boat in the Bahamas, slip fees range from equal to Florida to slightly higher. If you are a Royal Marsh Harbor Yacht Club member by this fall, and you arrive before January the 1st, and stay for at least 3 months, slip fees at our Royal Marsh Harbor Yacht Club home base, the Abaco Beach Resort in Marsh Harbor, are very, very favorable. If you arrive later than that or stay less than 3 months, the rates are still competitive to a bit more expensive than Florida. The other marinas in the area are about the same, from competitive to Florida to slightly higher. Electricity and water are a bit expensive, but you won't need your air conditioner much, and we have not run our heat for 12 years. So the first myth has some truth to it. It is more expensive in the Bahamas than Florida, but it is not too bad. If you can fit some extra costs into your budget, you will find the Bahamas is a very worthwhile trip. The next myth is the groceries and other provisions are hard to get. The biggest grocery store in Marsh Harbor, Maxwell's, is not quite as good as Publix in Florida, but pretty close. For me, the biggest problem is Maxwell's does not have the fresh tomato bisque soup on Wednesdays like Publix. Several well-stocked pharmacies and hardware stores are pretty good. General boat supplies are available, but do not expect a West Marine by any means. We travel with a good stock of spare boat parts, but when we do have a need, we ship it to the boat via one of 3 freight companies that fly in your parcels for pretty reasonable fees. I had a small seal kit for my steering system flown in last season, and it cost me $35 and took a week. Our next myth, the Abacos have not recovered from Hurricane Dorian. While there still is evidence of the destruction, most everything that will affect you has been rebuilt to even better than before. This includes restaurants, marinas, shopping, and so on. So this myth is busted. Our next myth, there's a lot of crime in the Bahamas. It is likely that any crime stories you have heard would center around Nassau. The rest of the Bahamas is very safe. Most crime in the out islands involves stealing center console boats so they can rip off the engines. I have heard of a few dinghies going missing, but that is normally some kids on a joyride or a dinghy that wasn't secured well by the owner after too much happy hour. We have not ourselves experienced a theft or crime in any way and have always felt very safe for our 12 years in the Bahamas. The next myth, the Bahamas are too remote. Delta and American Airlines plus a number of local airlines fly from Florida to Marsh Harbor all the time. Access for you and your guests is not an issue at all. They have a very nice modern airport that accommodates jets and so on. Even access to the remote islands up and down the Bahamian chain is very easy. We are not full-time on our boat, so we fly back home several times during the winter, no problem, except it costs about $300 more than just flying to your home from Florida. I have to mention here that internet is readily available pretty much everywhere, so you can easily work remotely. By the way, Starlink works great in the Bahamas. So this myth about being remote is busted. The next myth is it is too windy and cold in the winter. If you think the weather in Fort Lauderdale is too windy and cold in the winter, then you will say the same for the Abacos. We wear shorts and t-shirts all but a few days. There are a few evenings where we must wear light jackets at cocktail hour or even long pants. Ugh. But it is very comfortable most of the time. So this myth is mostly busted, and it is winter after all. By mid-February, the weather starts getting even better, and by March, it is spectacular. The next one, fuel is hard to get, expensive, and is contaminated. Fuel does cost $1 or $2 more per gallon, but both diesel and gasoline are readily available and clean, so I call this myth busted. The next myth is you can't get medical attention in the Bahamas. Of course, their medical capabilities do not match that of the United States, but don't sell them short. There is good medical assistance, a small hospital, doctor and nurse practitioners, a clinic, pharmacies, and so on. If a severe medical emergency occurs, you get airlifted out for a 35-minute flight to Nassau, Miami, or Fort Lauderdale. There are policies you can purchase that will pay for the airlift services and speed up the process. The next one, clearing customs is a big hassle. Wrong. It is mostly online now, costs $300 for a 3-month cruising and fishing permit, and $600 for a full year. It takes about an hour of your time. No big deal. If you take a weapon, be sure to declare it. No problem taking it into the Bahamas, but don't get caught with an undeclared weapon or an ammo miscount. Another myth is it is too complicated to bring a pet. Although we do not have a pet, many of our club members do, and they don't seem to have any issues. Of course, there's paperwork to fill out and a small fee to pay. Go to the link on the screen above to download the pet permit application. One of the biggest, scariest myths is it is difficult to plan a trip to the Bahamas. Lots of things to know and watch out for. It is hard to navigate and it is very shallow. While it is challenging to get there, it is well worth the effort to find the gin clear water, beautiful sandy beaches, and protected cruising. Once you are on the Bahama banks, the water does not get deeper than 15 feet. Charts are accurate and depths are well charted. So let's spend a few minutes talking about how Bonnie and I plan our trip to join with our Royal Marsh Harbor Yacht Club friends in the Abacos. Our pre-departure checklist includes maintenance on the boat and provisioning of food and supplies. It is more expensive in the Bahamas, but not by that much, so we don't overfill the boat with a bunch of stuff. We do stock up on our meds and personal items, and Bonnie reports shampoos and facial creams are sometimes double priced, so stock up on these for sure. I always stock up on a year's supply of hair gel, for example. Now would be a good time to invest in Steve Dodge's book, The Cruising Guide to the Abacos, Bahamas. This is a must-have guidebook and contains detailed information about exactly what you are wanting to do. We depart on the 65-mile crossing from Florida to West End, the Bahamas, from the Stewart Inlet, Lake Worth Inlet, or Port Everglades, Fort Lauderdale. Most of the time we cross with friends by connecting through the club or Facebook, so it is easy to pair yourself with another boat or two. The key is to pick a weather window when crossing conditions are good. A lot goes into picking a weather window, and it takes a while to build your skills in recognizing when the conditions meet your tolerance for bouncing around in your boat. The Gulf Stream is beautiful on a good day. On a bad day, it is very, very ugly, and you don't want to be there. When the winds have a component from the north blowing against the 3-knot current of the Gulf Stream, it can get very, very bumpy out there. We wait for very smooth days and just enjoy the ride. Here's what we do to pick our weather window. First thing we do, we cheat and we go to the professionals. Chris Parker Weather. For For a small fee, you can employ Chris to tell you when to go. Sign up a week in advance on his website. Fill out information like boat size, day you want to transit to the Bahamas, expected route, tolerance to sea conditions, and so on. He will email you a few days before your intended date and say something like, I know you plan to go on Sunday, but forget it. You will get pounded. I think Monday looks good. I will email you Sunday evening with a final report. By the way, I took some liberties with this quote. After a while, you will learn to use websites like buoyweather.com, Passage Weather, Wind Guru, NOAA, and Windy. I would bet you are already using these resources anyway. They all show expected wave conditions far in advance. It is a bit of an art to interpret all the conflicting data from these websites, and that is where your fellow experienced boaters can help. I find that when a few days before your crossing, most of these websites agree it should be a good crossing day, it is time to complete your provisioning and be ready to cross. If conditions aren't as forecast when you get out near the inlet, then turn around and go back home. So hire Chris Parker, buddy up with a fellow club member that knows what they're doing, and give her a shot. By mid-November, club members start crossing over to our winter home, and they find about 20% of the days are good crossing days. These days start getting further and further apart until January, where there's a good crossing day about every 2 to 3 weeks. So you got to wait a bit longer for that good crossing weather in the wintertime. Bonnie and I always wait for really smooth days where the waves are less than 1 foot. Half the time we are able to find a crossing where it is as flat as a lake out there. These are great crossings for sure. But of course, everyone has their own level of comfort. We have found our boat has a better tolerance for waves than we do. So what do you do if you get out in the middle of the Gulf Stream and have engine trouble? Well, the world does not come to an end. You fix your engine, or you call Sea Tow or Boat US, and they come and get you. I hope you have contracts with them, or it will be very expensive. We stop at West End at Old Bahama Bay Resort and Marina, do the final customs check-in, and have a great evening. Drinks at happy hour, dinner at the restaurant, and then a good night's sleep. Depending upon the forecast for our upcoming whale passage, we may stay here a few days and enjoy the area. More about the whale passage later. It makes the crossing even more interesting. The Bahamian people are very friendly, courteous, and helpful. We are guests in their country, so we are very respectful of them and their culture. Most of their economy is tourism, and they are very appreciative of boaters coming into their country and, of course, spending money so they can support their families. Speaking of money, Bahamian currency and U.S. currency are exactly the same, dollar for dollar. You can spend either in the Bahamas, so we don't bother getting Bahamian money before we arrive. Bahamian money does not spend well in the United States, so you need to convert or spend it before you go home. We depart the next morning through Indian Passage, and if you draw more than 4.5 feet, you got to play the tides. Or we go around Memory Rock where there is more water depth. As soon as you get into Indian Passage, you are on the Bahama banks. From here on, the water is only about 10 to 15 feet deep, and the ocean swells generally do not have any effect. Along the way, you will pass the center of the world right here, and when you do so, your life will be even more complete and you will have eternal happiness. When we turn the corner at Crab Key, you are in the Sea of Abaco, the protected waters between Great Abaco Island and the Abaco Keys, our winter boating playground. Right in the middle of the Sea of Abaco, there's a shallow area it's best to go around. To do so, you go through Whale Passage. This will take you back out into the open Atlantic for a short distance. Steve Dodge's book, The Cruising Guide to Abaco, has detailed information on this passage. If the seas are smooth and the winds lay down or are from the west, no problem. If the seas and the wind are not in your favor, wait it out until the right crossing day. Whale Passage is absolutely stunningly beautiful and a lot of fun on a good day. On a bad day, it can make for a very, very bad day. Be sure to get some advice on this very brief voyage into the Atlantic Ocean. After Whale Passage, we are back in the Sea of Abaco's protected waters, and we pull into Boat Harbor Marina, Abaco Beach Resort in time for cocktails with our club friends under the Royal Marsh Harbor Yacht Club official tent. The welcome from our club friends that arrive before us each year is always heartwarming, and we are always so happy to be back in our winter home. I hope you see now that traveling to the Bahamas is not really so scary after all. Bonnie and I love our home away from home so much. The water is gin clear, the beaches are clean and fresh, the people are welcoming, our club friends. What a wonderful place for us to enjoy the winter. We hope you join us in the Bahamas.